just wanna be alone with you. Just wanna be alone with you. Same old thing, the same old thing that keeps me around. And if you wanna come around, baby, it's cool. And if you wanna fuck around, baby, I do. Just wanna be alone with you. With you, with you, with you, just wanna be alone. What's your name again? I've seen so many of them come. Want me just play pretend? All your girls, they just wanna have fun. But it's the same old thing that we all see. Same old thing that keeps me keen. But I just wanna be alone with you. Just wanna be alone with you. Same old thing, the same old thing that keeps me around. If you wanna come around, baby, it's cool. And if you wanna fuck around, baby, I do. Just wanna be alone with you. With you. With you. With you. Just wanna be alone.
Ok, bienvenidos a todos. Estamos muy felices de iniciar esta sesión especial de la reunión anual de la Sociedad Chilena de Ciencias Fisiológicas. Esta es una sesión abierta a la comunidad por la importancia que revierte evidentemente en nuestra comunidad científica el publicar, y siempre hemos estado muy preocupados respecto a conocer cuáles son los procedimientos, cuáles son las visiones de los editores en jefe de las revistas que más publicamos y que más creemos y queremos publicar en nuestra carrera científica, especialmente para los jóvenes. Así que tenemos 4 invitados quienes van a contarnos de su experiencia en sus revistas, y los invitamos desde ya a hacer preguntas en el chat de la página que ustedes están viendo en este momento, y yo trataré entonces de traspasarla a los invitados para sus comentarios. Como tenemos invitados, por supuesto, que solo hablan inglés, o mejor dicho, no español, vamos a realizar esta sesión en inglés, así que cambio desde este momento. Okay, so the annual meeting of the Chilean Physiological Society this year has the pleasure of having 4 editors of very important journals for our field of research, physiology and associated areas. And we will have the possibility of knowing their views of how the editorial process is, and you as an audience will have the possibility of asking them questions regarding your own worries and the general points that we can perhaps try to organize in the discussion meeting. They will have 5 to 10 minutes to present very short communication about their journal or their views of the topic, and then open for questions. You will have the option to ask using the Q&A on your screen, depending on the system you're using. And I will pass the question to the speakers so we can have a conversation. Today, then, the idea is to, in fact, meet the big editors and try to understand the editorial process, not just to find a way how I can publish more, but in fact, trying to understand what are the problems, what are the facilities that you can have in an editorial process, going through an editorial process. And here we have, as one of the speakers, Professor Angelo Azzi. He's from the Molecular Aspects of Medicine and other journals. I just put it in here. He's from the Sackler School of Graduate Medical Pharmacology and Drug Development Program, and is also a Strategic Initiatives Advisor of the Office of the Vice Provost for Research in Tufts University. His career in medicine and physiology has been very important, and he is under the editorial, is an editor-in-chief of the Molecular Aspects of Medicine, making this journal very, very promising and very active all the time. Then we also have another invited editor, Sergio Greensteiner, and he is an associate editor of the Physiological Reviews. It's located at the Cell Biology program at the Hospital for Sick Children, and also member faculty of the Department of Biochemistry at the University of Toronto. So we are very glad having Sergio, who is also a member, a titular member of our Chilean Physiological Society. We have also in this session a person that in Chile we know very well, Alicia Matiasi. She is the editor-in-chief of Physiological Mini Reviews. It's a journal that is in fact the official journal of the Latin American Association of Physiological Sciences, which is very important for us. I'm a member of the society. She is at the Centro de Investigaciones cardiovasculares de la Facultad de Medicina, Universidad de La Plata in Argentina, and is an emeritus superior researcher of the CONICET in Argentina. She has been very important in physiology in South America for many, many years. So thank you for that, Alicia, for being here. And then finally, we have Kim Barret. She is the present editor-in-chief of the Journal of Physiology. I think we all know Kim Barret about regarding the activity and the permanent presence of the Journal of Physiology in our research, in our papers, in our reviews, etc. She is the editor-in-chief and is keeping the journal running very well, of course. Is a distinguished professor of physiology and membrane biology, and is also a vice dean for research in the School of Medicine at the UC Davis. And she started in that position recently. In fact, she was moving to that place a few months ago. So we are very happy having this group of people, selected editors of the selected journals. And I just encourage you to listen and to ask questions. This is the moment. We have another 45 minutes to prepare questions and comment with the editors. We always want, and we always are desiring to talk with the editors, you know, to have this moment to ask them a specific question that we cannot ask when we are submitting the paper to the journals. So welcome to all, and we will start in a few seconds. We have to stop this, and we will start in a few seconds with Alicia, I think. Is that correct, Sebastian, or support? Okay, so in a few seconds, we will disconnect now, and then Alicia will come back for a short presentation about her role in the physiological mini reviews. Now.
Okay, good morning to everyone, and thank you so much for this invitation. Actually, it's an honor for me to share this meeting with all the editor-in-chief of these prestigious journals. I'm the editor-in-chief of Physiological Mini Review, that the Physiological Mini Review is an online journal that publishes 6 issues every year. And it was born as the official journal of the Argentinian Society of Physiology. But after the reorganization of the Latin American Society of Physiology for Physiological Sciences, Physiological Mini Review became the official journal of ALAC, the Latin American Society of Physiological Sciences, which included the physiological societies for different countries of Latin America, Brazil, Colombia, Cuba, Chile, Haiti, Mexico, Peru, and the physiological section of the Uruguayan Society of Biosciences. And which is the scope of this journal? Our journal publishes invited or not invited short reviews on relevant and recent development on physiological sciences. And in addition, we also put out special sections about education addressed to teachers and researchers that generate and transmit knowledge. And we recently started with 2 new sections: timeline of physiological recoveries mainly addressed to young people for them to know the usually long and difficult path traveled by researchers to reach a given goal. And then also mini interviews to the first author, also addressed to young people for them to tell their experience in doing research. And also we publish programs and abstracts of Latin American Congress. Here are some examples of our issue on education and our new issue on mini interviews and the time of discovery. For instance, this one has published the discoveries of the atrial natriuretic peptide by Adolfo de Bold, and unfortunately he passed away some few weeks ago, and was our first number, just telling how he arrives to discover this peptide. And this is a kind of flow chart just to let you know all the steps that follow our original manuscript before being published. They go first to me, to the editor, and I can share or not, depending on the subject, to one of the associate editors. And then we send it to 2 members of the editorial board. And we receive the criticism in general around 2 weeks later. And then we send the criticism to the authors. The author answer us, and we may or may not to send again the criticisms, the answers to the editorial board. Sometimes we accepted the reviews directly. And the average for the whole process is 38 days. We don't have publication cost. And since I mentioned here the editorial boards and the associate editors, I must say that 70% of the associate editors are from Latin American, 30% from outside Latin American, also the editorial board, and also the publications. About 70% are from Latin American authors and 30% from outside authors. And this is some statistics, the visitors we have. We don't have very many visitors, but now we are improving. And most of the visitors are from Argentina, but also from other countries all over the world. And this is the age range. And as you see, most of the people that visit us is young people, very young people from 18 to 35 years. And then you can find us at the web page, is this, the Facebook or the Instagram, or you can write to our email. And this is a quick, I quickly show the associate editors and also the editorial board. We have also a special board on education and a publishing editorial board that helps me in the day-to-day work, and an editorial assistant. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will be waiting for your answer. And thank you again for allowing me to participate in this meeting.
Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, depends on where you are. That's what I am, and this is what I want to discuss with you. In fact, I don't want to discuss so much what you can find in the website of our journals, but rather what I think In fact, here are the journals. Luis has already shown molecular aspects of medicine. I'm editor-in-chief of this. Biofactors, I'm also editor-in-chief of this, and mechanisms of aging and development, and I am associate editor of this. Now, in bold characters, you can see a number, and that's the impact factor. Luis had already mentioned this, and I want to tell you what I do think about this very discussed impact factor. If you want to evaluate a candidate for promotion, the best is to analyze each single publication of the candidate, have a panel, and forget about impact factor. One paper could be enough for promoting a fantastic candidate. But if you don't have this kind of structure of a panel for the promotion with time and understanding of the content of the publications of the candidate, I think you need to have this kind of extra help, and this is the impact factor. So in principle, it doesn't tell you everything, but it's very useful. Molecular Aspects of Medicine is a review article journal publishing only long review articles, invited, but one can also submit requests and can be evaluated. It has a decent impact factor. Biofactor instead is essentially a primary research journal focusing on biofactors, biological factors, which could be either from nature, so factors that you get with your food, like polyphenols, vitamins, trace metals, but also factors that you produce in your own body, which are close enough to a large part of biochemistry. And this is, of course, a specialized journal on aging, which also has a decent impact factor. And now I want to tell you not so much about the journals. As I said, you can see in the websites what the journal is in terms of editors, associate editors, and so on. What I expect from a journal publication, from a submitted article, is novelty. If the paper is not novel, immediately when it is reviewed, when my reviewers, the referees evaluate and says, well, it's nothing wrong with that article, but there's nothing novel. For me, it's not worth publishing. The other aspect that I care very much about is how the article is constructed. Many articles are like this. I take a substance, I have a cell culture, I dump some drop of the substance in the cell culture, and let's see what happens. This is something, again, that doesn't fit with my DNA as an editor-in-chief. You should have an hypothesis. I think that a certain compound must regulate a certain pathway at a cellular level, or in humans, or whatever. This is my hypothesis. And then I go to the experimental bench, or animal house, or whatever, and find out, is my hypothesis correct or not? And of course, what also I don't like is, I have tried now a natural compound, resveratrol, in a cell culture of fibroblasts. Next paper, resveratrol in a cell culture of adipocytes. Just the same paper, just changing the type of cells. Again, is not for me acceptable. Another important thing, in my view, is when you conceive and write a paper, think differently. If in your research there is something that doesn't fit with your hypothesis, something must be wrong. You repeat the experiment, but that is always repeatable. That could be at the basis of an important discovery, something novel, which I define in a broad way, think differently. And now let's go to after you have your journal, your article, your paper prepared. My next point is, okay, we have to submit it. Don't be afraid of submitting your paper to a big journal. Sometimes you say, oh, it has an impact factor of 10, 14 in my journal. It's too much. I will go down to 5 or 3. If you're really convinced that your stuff is good, don't worry. Go high, publish or try to publish in a big journal. To the worse, the referee in big journals will be friendly in the sense of they will make proposals, they will make suggestions to improve your article, rather than simply say it's not acceptable, which is useless, or accepted straight away without any referees, any comments. I think this is important. A big journal is a serious journal. And be afraid of predatory journals, journals that don't offer guarantees of serious reviewing, that they want to make money. They may disappear when their servers are closed down. So I don't want to speak too much about that, but forget, predatory journals can be a black point in your CV. When you have submitted your article and then you see the response, as I say, good journals give good criticism. You are very much welcome, in my view. I appreciate that, to criticize reviewers if necessary. Don't simply say, okay, God has said my paper is bad. I don't fight against God. No. If you are convinced that the reviewers are bad, and sometimes reviewers can be bad, you are very welcome to send me criticism and say, I don't accept it. This reviewer made a mistake, which means interact freely with the editor-in-chief, with me, and be prepared to resubmit the same article to another journal or to myself, to my same journal. So these are the basic things I believe important to, in my view, to publish a good article in a good journal. There's more to say about other aspects that are going to be discussed, like Latin America, like the cost of publishing, open access. This I can certainly address in form of questions to answer to. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Angelo. Excellent. Thank you very much. And Alicia also for the previous presentation. So now I would like to move to Kim to listen about Journal of Physiology and her duties.
Thank you very much, Luis, and thank you for the kind invitation to be here. It's an honor to have the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the Journal of Physiology and our approach to publishing your work. The Journal of Physiology that I am the editor-in-chief of is one of the oldest physiology journals, and I know that we publish a lot of work from Latin America, so I expect that many in the audience are familiar with the journal. It's published by the Physiological Society of the UK and Ireland, but it is truly an international journal. Our editorial board of around 80 scientists come from all over the world, including scientists from Latin America. And two prominent members of our board are Wagner Antunes from Sao Paulo and Pancho Sepulveda from Valdivia, who is our crosstalk editor and a member of our leadership team. Hopefully you get the impression from that we have a journal that is published and edited by scientists for scientists. And I think that's really very much a characteristic of society-driven journals. We publish twice a month. We have the highest number of citations of any physiological journal, and we also have millions of views and downloads every year. The journal is very much focused, as Angelo has already alluded to, on mechanistic studies that really address an important physiological question. Our acceptance rate is around 25%, so it's not a given that any work will be published. And the papers that make it through the publication process really are asking important non-incremental questions. But I don't want to certainly discourage you from submitting your work. And in fact, we welcome pre-submission inquiries. So if you have any questions at all about whether your work is suitable for JP, don't hesitate to email the journal directly. We have a two-stage review process with a senior editor who initially will look at the article and then assign it to one of our reviewing editors on the board, who will then send the article out for review. We are very focused in the journal currently on the principles of rigor, reproducibility, and transparency in publication. We recently completely overhauled our policies with respect to data presentation and statistics. And also we have recently started publishing the peer review history as supplemental material, which is, I think, very instructive, particularly to young investigators and trainees in the field, to see the evolution of a paper through the peer review process, because all of us benefit from the constructive criticism from colleagues, and every paper has some point to be that can be improved. And it's very rare, I think, for all of us, even if we've been in the field for a long time, to have a paper accepted without any revisions at all. It's happened once in my career. If it ever happens to you, that's the time to put down the pipettes for the day and go to the pub and celebrate, because it may never happen again. The other thing I want to say about the journal is that we really see ourselves as the hub of a physiological community. We're very interested in promoting the new entrants to the field, trainees, young investigators. We have an editorial board fellows scheme where junior faculty are invited to join the editorial board in a mentored capacity. It's a competitive process. Once a year, we select a cadre of those fellows, and they act as reviewing editors with the direct assistance of a senior editor. And it's a great opportunity to see behind the curtain of the peer review process and really get a sense of how things work. Another feature of the journal that's, I think, useful for young investigators is our journal club feature, which is an opportunity for students and postdocs to write a brief critique of an article that has recently appeared in the journal, and not just to describe the article, but to really give some context and thoughts about how it adds to the field and what some next steps might be. So I encourage you to take a look at the journal if you're a student or a postdoc and you want to try your hand at writing a journal club article. Those also are truly international in nature, and we receive submissions from all over the world. And then finally, we work very hard to promote the work of our authors. We publish on our website short videos that are called physiological shorts, where authors will talk about their work. We publish short bios and photographs of first authors of the papers to really promote new entrants to the field. We give prizes every year for the best papers by young investigators. And we're very active in social media. The journal has more than 22,000 followers on Twitter. I also have a Twitter account. I think that's how Luis and I met, through Twitter. And I've definitely become a convert to the power of social media to connect the physiological community. So I encourage you to take a look at the journal, and I'm looking forward to answering any questions that you may have. And thanks again, Luis, for the kind invitation to be in this session this morning.
Thank you, Kim. That was nice. Thank you for being here. In fact, you are very early there in your place, and so double thanks for that. And then we are going to move now into Sergio Greenstein. And I must apologize because I always change his name to different names, but finally I got it, Sergio Greenstein. So sorry about that, Sergio. I must say that he is also a member of the Chilean Physiological Society since already 2 years or 2.5 years. So we are very proud of that, and also that he is involved in the editorial processes with physiological reviews. So we're going to listen to Sergio now for the next 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, Luis, thank you very much for inviting me, Luis. And rest assured, you're not the only one that mispronounces my name in 10 different ways. Happens all the time. And I just wanted to tell to the audience que es un placer y un privilegio poder hablar con ustedes hoy. Mi idioma nativo es el español. My second language is Spanglish. So feel free to ask questions in any dialect of your choice. The reason Luis invited me today is because I'm an associate editor of Physiological Reviews. And if the purpose of this presentation is to tell you how to get yourselves published in Physiological Reviews, that would make it a very short presentation, because Physiological Reviews is about 99% invited reviews. So you want to get published in Physiological Reviews, you have to become important and well-respected in your field, and then sit by your email and wait for an invitation from the editor-in-chief. And that's about all I could tell you in that respect. There's about 1 to 2% of reviews in Physiological Reviews that are volunteered. And there's always the option of sending a volunteered review. They very, very rarely get accepted. Most of what we get by way of volunteered reviews are introductory chapters of thesis of students that feel that it's worth publishing them in some good place, and they get rejected ipso facto. So in terms of getting published for Physiological Reviews, become proficient in your field, become an expert, become well-known, and then hope that one of the members of the associate editor group will nominate your name and your topic for an invitation, in which case you'll get an invitation from the editor-in-chief shortly thereafter. We meet once a year, and within a month of that meeting, people get invitations to publish, and then you get a 2-year window of time to prepare your reviews, because Physiological Reviews publishes very large, comprehensive, scholarly pieces. So that would make my presentation much too short, and I thought I would spice it up by just giving you more general comments also. When I was starting my career, or even a student, there was basically one type of journal. Journals were all handled and managed by scientific editors. And it sufficed at the time to be responsible, proficient in your field, to have a well-done paper considered and published in a place like the Journal of Biological Chemistry, Journal of Physiology, the American Journal. That was then, that was before electricity when I was young. Now, journals have evolved, and there are basically 3 kinds of journals. There are the vanity journals, the Nature, Cell, Science. There's the journals that are managed by scientific societies, like the American Journal of Physiology, like Physiological Reviews, like Journal of Cell Biology. And then there's the predatory journals that Angelo mentioned already. And the criteria and the way to get yourself published in each one of these is different. It's regrettable that we all depend for some reason, on impact factors, and we're all chasing the vanity journals. The problem with the vanity journals is twofold in my view. One is they don't simply want proficient science, they want novelty, and they want not just novelty, like Angela mentioned, but sexy novelty, something that's shocking and striking and so novel that will make you fall off your chair. And if you don't send that, they won't even review your paper, let alone accept it. Nature and Science review only about 10% of the submissions. Of those, they accept about 10%. So in the end, they end up publishing about 1% of their submissions. You want to publish there, you take your chances. They're important journals, they have huge visibility. The other problem with those journals is that the triage, the selection, is made not by scientists that are at the bench, not people that have spent their lives doing science like you and I, but people that are professional editors and that are empowered to think that they know more than they do and more than you and I. And they end up triaging and separating papers on the basis of their likes and on the basis of fashion. So really, the vanity journals are a little bit like Vanity magazine. They're fashionable and sexy. Then there are the journals in between, like all the good, solid, society-driven journals. And they have my entire respect for that, because that's where scientists get involved in the assessment of the papers, in the review of the papers, in the distribution of the papers to reviewers. It takes time, it takes effort. If you become a member of one of those societies, it's labor intensive, it's demanding, but it's an essential component of your career as a scientist. And I would very much encourage you to publish there. And I would very much encourage the heads of departments to not only hire people that published in the vanity journals, but people that published in the good, solid, respectable journals. And then there's the predatory journals, the Hindawis, the Austins, those guys that fill in your mailbox every morning with, "Dear distinguished, lovely, handsome professor, we really want your work in our Journal of Fish and Selfish Immunology," or whatever it is. Stay away from those like the plague. They don't want your science, they want your money. And they'll take whatever you send them as long as you pay. And most of them are now open access, which really is an open wallet. It'll be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to publish in those places. You can publish anything. You can actually have a paper manufactured by one of those paper farms that generate papers for you. So if you have $10,000, you give $3,000 to a paper farm, you give $4,000 to a predatory journal, and you have an extra line on your CV. If that's what you want to make of your career, you can. I guess that's the bottom line. So again, it's a pleasure, it's placer y un privilegio, and if you want to ask questions in any language, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Okay, thank you again. Sorry, I was with the microphone off. So I'm starting again. I was saying thank you to all the speakers, the editors present here, and all the audience also, of course. And I was just looking at the presentations, and one general point that is obvious, is present in all the presentations, is something like, for example, the predatory journals, and also paying for publication. So that's one hot topic that we are all discussing on the corridors and the streets, you know, but we never put this on paper. There are some publications from a Spanish group, in fact, making very nice statistics about how is the people publishing in open access, or as Sergio Greensteiner just said, open wallet papers. And it's amazing to see the amount of papers, you know, in some certain publishers. But it's just that, as I think is the concept. It's just an amount of paper. The really quality papers are going to a different way, I think. So I would like to ask, for example, what is your impression, Angelo, Alicia, Kim, Sergio, about the open access? The open access system. There is a society of publishers, you know, that is very much discussing about the good things of open access. And in fact, I see that it can be good also, because you're putting your publication in a different amount of people, because they are doing very much propaganda, I would say, of your paper. But at the end of the day, as you all mentioned, is something that can, in fact, affect a little bit your CV, as Angelo just mentioned at the beginning. So what do you think about the open access, the negative and the positive thing, very quickly for that? Angelo, please.
Yeah, open access is a bitter medicine, but we have to take it. All the publishers that I know, by the way, my journals are all library paid journals, so there's no fee to access, to submit, color, everything is free. But we know that from the publishers that the future is only open access. Now, the point is open access doesn't mean that one has to put his hands in the pockets of a scientist. What now the librarians have in terms of money to buy journals and to facilitate the access to the journals will be done by having the publishers paid for the cost of the journal, and they will make it free. So essentially, there will be ways of moderating the costs that are not going to be in the pockets of the scientist.
Good.
But we have to take it. It's going to change soon into that direction.
Yeah, that my worry is exactly that, Angelo, is that every single journal will move into open access at the end of the day. And but we have to find a way that we as researchers don't pay that directly. In our country, for example, in Chile, Sergio might know, and Alicia, I'm sure she knows, in our system, we have the national system funding for science, and then they give money for doing experiments, very few money for salaries, but nothing for publication. They say you can spend money in publication, but it's under your risk because you are reducing the money for bench fees.
So at the for example, Wiley has already realized a consortium in Europe, Germany, Switzerland, and UK, where the government pays for the costs. Yeah. So there is, of course, the scientist doesn't have to pay, especially because not everyone is as rich as in Chile. There are countries like in Ghana, like in Zimbabwe, where people are really even poorer than in Chile. So this has to be avoided, but there are mechanisms in place to avoid this. One is that the granting agencies now should provide support also for the publication. I don't give you only money for doing some test tube experiments, but your experiments cost also because they have to be published. This has to be provided. The other is consortia. For instance, in Latin America, there should be organized a consortium which is going to take over the costs of publication for each one who wants to publish in those open access journals.
Yeah, I don't know, yeah. Kim, do you have any? Sorry, okay. Alicia, please.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yes, so I agree with Angelo that this is something that is coming, and we really don't have much power to fight against it because there's a lot of pressure from funding bodies to make the work freely available. I think we have to be careful to distinguish open access from predatory journals. Those two things are not the same. Open access is just a business model for publishing the work so that it's free to the reader. But publishing per se is not free. There are true costs involved in getting the work out there. So this is really just shifting the costs either to the authors, as you indicated, Luis, or to their institutions or to the funding bodies. And some solution for that has to be found. It is a problem for individual journals because it changes the incentives. Instead of looking to publish only the best work, you have now an incentive to publish as much as possible because every paper that you publish brings more money. And so I think societies are going to have to think very carefully about how they preserve the rigor and selectivity of their journals in a new world. It's also a real problem, I think, for review journals like Alicia and Sergio are involved with, because traditionally people who have taken the time to write, hundreds of pages of review for physiological reviews don't then want to turn around and pay to publish it. So this is a real issue. But I agree with Angelo. This is coming. Every respectable journal is working on their plans. And I think we will increasingly see what are being called read and publish deals, where either individual institutions or university systems or whole countries are negotiating with publishers to pay a fee, typically less than they're paying now for subscriptions, I might add, that also allows investigators to publish for free. So the cost is borne by the system overall.
Yeah, very much agree with that. Alicia?
Yeah, I agree with all of you that actually I don't like the open system because it's as you said, it's open just for the people who have money. Of course, it's good for the as a if you read for a reader of the manuscript. For us, it's good. Because we don't have access to, and our libraries they don't have access to all the journals. But I think it's not good that we have to pay so much, and we can't pay actually for this publication. In our case, we are an open access journal, but without publication cost, and what we talk about that with our society, how to pay we don't have many we don't have to pay a lot because all of us are working just because we like it without receiving any money, but we have to pay to some people that help us. As the assistant, the editorial assistants, or the people that put our web page, that maintain our web page. And something that we started doing now is just to ask for sponsors. And Luis, I can tell you that we got two sponsors, and then our web page is changing now because we were able to pay him to the people that is maintaining the page. So we have to change it to be able to be indexed in PubMed. So we got the money, and we have another two sponsors that I think that they will contribute in a few days. So we will be able also to pay what we have to pay the DOI that cost us $200 every year. So that is a solution for us, but I don't know if it is a solution for the big journals with the people that is working with the salary and so on. So that is my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. So having the sponsors now with the journal, your Physiological Mini Reviews journal, does it mean that the cost or the eventual cost for the authors is not going to be then while we have the sponsors?
They are without cost. Yeah, yeah. The
Right.
publication is without.
Yeah. So I was reading here a question on the chat. The people is asking Sonia Buvinic from University of Chile. She's concerned about paying high fees, you know, for the open access journal. Okay, you can pay $400, $300, but when the journal is asking you, sorry, it's $3,000 or even up to $12,000, one of the journals, you know. So how do you feel about that, Sergio? You have some comment on that?
I was going to follow up on that. I think the open access idea is wonderful. You know, being able to publish and having people read it immediately is a great idea, but it's not a zero-sum game. It costs money and somebody has to pay it. Now, the European agencies are now paying, in most instances, for papers published from a separate pot of money than what's given to you in your grant, and that's wonderful. But that's not happening all over the world. Latin America, Canada, Mexico, that's an issue. So at the moment, it's disadvantaging the poor countries or a lot of countries. And it's not a zero-sum game because the publishers either make the money from open access or make the money from subscriptions charged institutions and universities. They're going to make their money anyway. Now, if the university or institution pays for part of it, then you don't have to pay for it, right? The other issue with open access is that for the predatory journals, if you don't have any disincentive, if somebody's going to pay for your open access, then if nobody else wants your journal, you send it to a garbage predatory journal, it's going to be published, it's going to be paid for. At least now, if you have to pay for open access, you give it a second thought. Do you want to pay $5,000 for something to be published in the Sub-Saharan Journal of Tropical Diseases?
Yeah. But I must say something regarding the possibility that having an open access, paying the money, you know, you will have the paper out in 4 or 5 days, available for all the people. However, for example, with Angelo in the molecular aspects medicine, that's a politics, I think, from Elsevier, you have free access for 51 or 61 days immediately after acceptance. Yeah. So at the end of the day, still the people has their access to the recently approved or accepted paper in this system. So many people is deciding, and this is my experience, I think you may feel the same, is deciding not to publish in such a paper because they have to pay. And that's a problem that we have been discussing. I agree fully with the open access will be the future. That will be. But there must be some way that we as researchers don't pay on that. And I want to move because, sorry, yes, thank you.
Just to give you a quick example, up until a couple of months ago, I was on the editorial, an associate editor of Cellular Microbiology, which was a Wiley journal. Wiley decided to pass Cellular Microbiology to Hindawi and to make it an open access journal immediately, period. That's purely for financial gain.
Absolutely.
So most of us on the editorial board resigned on the spot, period.
It is interesting that the people going, for example, to these editorials that are charging a lot of money, they are increasing their impact factor, and the people is now being tempted because the impact factor is growing up, you know? And it was said here that publishing an impact factor of some of these, not exactly predatory journals, is perhaps not very much convenient at the moment. So I wanted to ask you about one other question on the chat from Manuel Estrada, also from the University of Chile. What do you think about the recent statistics published by Clarivate, in fact showing that the Latin American people is publishing significantly more publication now in the international journals? Is it because pay journal? So if I pay more, I publish more, or is it for just traditional and journals like we are talking here, Journal of Physiology, etc. What do you think about that? And what do you think about the challenge that is facing in the real life now with the contributions from Latin America? How do you feel Latin American contributions in your journals and in physiology?
Maybe I can start, Luis. So I would say that it's been our observation at the Journal of Physiology that in the physiological discipline specifically, there is such high quality work ongoing in Latin America. There's been a trend in the UK, in the United States, I don't know about Canada, to sort of physiology as a discipline is a little bit sidelined, and departments that have physiology in their name are being merged with other departments, and physiology is not quite as visible in American medical schools. But in Latin America, there is wonderful physiological work being done, and certainly we are seeing that. We have definitely been eager to have Latin American scientists on our editorial board because the quality of the work is so high. We get a very large number of submissions from Brazil, for example, and having gone to the SB-Phys meetings a couple of times, there's a very, very vibrant community of young trainees up and coming in the field as well. So we're excited about that.
Fantastic. How do you see that, Sergio?
I can comment in two different ways. One is I wish somebody would calculate the quality of the science per dollar, because I think Latin America is incredibly productive that way. The quality of the work, considering the amount of funding that you guys get, is unbelievable compared to the waste of money that happens in other countries. That's for sure. The second thing is, even though Kim made the point that physiological science were waning in North America and in Europe for the last 15 to 20 years, with departments of physiology being merged into departments of molecular this or that, I think finally, the North Americans and the Europeans are seeing the light, and they're realizing that, you do big data science, you do systems biology, you identify 100 molecules, and you don't know what the hell they do or how they do it or how they integrate it. Oh shit, we need physiology. And I think physiology is coming back, and will come back with a vengeance. And people like the Latin Americans that have a solid grounding in biophysics and physiology stand a great opportunity to succeed in the future. So just let's hang in there. I trained as a physiologist. I was forced to convert into a biochemist, cell biologist. Deep in my heart, I know I've always been a physiologist. I remember, if I can tell you this, when I joined the Department of Physiology in Mexico, it was actually called Department of Physiology and Biophysics. And I asked my supervisor, the late David Ehrlich, what do biophysicists do? And he said, we talk biology to physicists, we talk physics to biologists, and amongst ourselves, we talk about women.
All right. Okay, sorry. This is a very nice discussion. We, as I mentioned before, we have only 1 hour and we have left 2 or 3 minutes. And I want to go to very quick question and perhaps very quick and yes or no answer. So it's a kind of game for the people to wake up a little bit in the room there. For example, Sonja Vuvinich is asking, why don't we create a science Netflix? So we have to pay one monthly, a monthly payment, so to have to all the meetings. What do you think about that? Yes or no, possible, not possible? We have no time for a long discussion.
Yeah, do we need filters to decide what gets put on Netflix or on Facebook?
It's just because the question is based because the argues between the journals or editorials mainly and the sci-hub, the free access to the journal. So it's one of the points. The other question that was also present here is, what about publishing in the native language and not in English? Yeah. So that's a big question. Do we want it in English? Do we want it in the native language? Because you can use now the Google or internet to translate everything. So that was one of the arguments. Do you think no, yes, not possible now?
You know that I like
No.
when I was young actually, to publish in Spanish, because I felt that I should do that. But now I realize that I have to publish in English, and I don't want to publish in Spanish.
Okay, so it should be in English for the moment, I think.
I mean,
What do you think?
it's not because it's English, it's a universal language of
Exactly.
science.
Yeah.
It could be Esperanto, it could be anything. But I think
Fine.
pretending now that we can go to another language.
Not only, but English is also an exercise, a logic exercise. You don't have only to read and write, but you have to think in English, communicate with your colleagues. And this cannot be done by Google.
Yeah.
I think that the Minister of Science in Mexico, because now we're very woke and very progressive, has proposed that we stop in Mexico publishing in Spanish and start publishing in the Mexican native languages, in Nahuatl, Aztec, and so on. So you can take your choice and see who the hell's gonna Google something in Nahuatl.
At the end of the day, you want your work to be read. And
Exactly. Okay. Now another quick question is, what about sending a paper to review and then receiving it back 3 or 4 days without any scientific feedback, saying, sorry, it's not appropriate for the journal, when sometimes it is? I mean, the people claim.
Authors can always appeal any decision that we make, but we do triage some of our papers because there's only so many reviewers to go around, and it also allows authors to get a quick decision. There's always a scientist involved in that decision, however.
All right, good point. Always a scientist involved in the decision, yes.
If the decision is quick, 1 day straight out refusal, I don't think it disturbs anybody, because the time needed to resubmit is going to be another journal, another day. Yeah. So altogether, one has to accept this.
But now in the vanity journals, the Natures and the Sciences, you get rejected in 3 days. You get a boilerplate letter that doesn't explain why they wouldn't read or review your paper. And I find that insulting, and I find it unjustified, and very often unwarranted scientifically. It's really bad.
Yeah, that's one of the opinions.
20 minutes in Nature, I think.
20 minutes. And the final thing is, how are the journals doing to not suffocate the reviewers with so many papers? You know, we all receive, mails asking for reviews. How is the politics? Because we are saying no, even because we are too busy. We are not looking at the title of the abstract, just saying no because it's too busy. So what is going to happen with that?
Personally, I say no to journals that I don't think have appropriate policies. But I will try always to review for reputable journals if I can. But the triage that we just talked about is an important part of that you don't send papers to reviewers that think really have no chance of getting in the journal in the end.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm an associate editor of the circulation research, and we also use the triage a lot, but all the papers are also looked by scientific people.
I wrote to some of the authors publishing in one of my journals that publish frequently and never review articles. And I wrote to them saying, it's a responsibility of a scientist not only to publish, but also to review the publications of other authors. I think it should be encouraged.
Yeah, good. All right, it's been a very nice session. I'm very happy listening to you and the ideas and the people also asking many questions in the chat here or the WhatsApp. So we have no more time. People is coming into the room. And thank you again, Angelo, Kim, Sergio, I will never forget your name again, Alicia, and all the people from the Physiological Society for allowing us to discuss on this. I'm sure that the people will keep asking, so I will redirect questions to your emails if you allow me.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you very much, and have a nice day. Have a nice breakfast, Kim.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Take care.